The following is a discussion that I had together with Rabbi Motty Rosenhan. Motty is not only an old chavrusa of mine from the Mir Yeshiva in Yerushalayim, but also just so happens to be a distant relative of mine as well. I consider myself incredibly lucky on both accounts. So without further ado, here's my discussion with Rav Motty.
I grew up in Yerushalayim. Never thought about leaving Yerushalayim. Still love that place. Still miss that place. But then at some point, myself and my wife Esther, we had this idea that we should go explore other places and maybe create a small Yerushalayim for them to have them that taste. So as a challenge, we looked for the furthest place that's possible. And we think of going to India first, but there are enough places there. Like, people find spirituality in India. It's pretty common. What we found out is, like, Vegas is a cool party place. So that's where people really, really enjoy and go through their materialistic stuff and enjoy life. But it's furthest from Yerushalayim. So basically we created a mini Yerushalayim over here. And that's our goal. So we live here now in Vegas for 3.5 years. We have an open house. It's called Beit Israeli. We have a little shul here. It's called Ahavat Israel. And it's just open for everyone to crash in. And it's a cool spot. I don't know how they say it in English. Is there a word for Zula in English? Like a hangout? Like a hangout spot?
I don't know.
It's just a chill hangout spot for people to crash in and find themselves, hopefully, and help me find myself. So that's what we do here. Yeah, we just we have an open house, and we connect with people.
So clearly it makes it, I mean, judging from your story, it sounds to me like you got into spirituality before you moved to Vegas.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So while in Yerushalayim, I was exploring different types of spirituality and Judaism. I actually joined a Kabbalah group in Me'asharim. It was like a small secret thing. I was the youngest person there. The average age of the Kabbalah group in Me'asharim, it was in the house of the Rabbi of Spinka in Me'asharim. Basically, a guy brought me over there. The average age was 76. I was 20.
Wow.
So the guys were like, okay, do you really want to be here? I'm just going to sit here. I'm not going to bother anyone. I happened to stay there for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
It was really cool. And that's where I started the journey towards my spiritual self. And since then, we're just, trying to connect to other people and work on it together. Because working on it together is always the best, You could be alone. You could find yourself alone, but then you're lonely, right? This world is created for connections and finding meaning together. So that's what we love to do. We just want to meet people and connect to people. And it's great you have this podcast here, and whoever's listening to this too. Like, we're connecting to you right now. So it's amazing. It's the most beautiful thing that can happen. We just connect.
Oh, wow. That sounds really nice. Just to, play devil's advocate a little bit. What do you say to the people who are like, wait, you were only in your 20s and you were studying Kabbalah? Like, I thought you're not supposed to be studying Kabbalah till you're over 40.
Right. It's a common question. The way they studied Kabbalah there was very personal. So basically they were going through the texts and trying to figure out how it works for them and what does it mean for them. So in Israel they call it the Musar of the Kabbalah. So they were learning its Chaim, and then they were figuring out, okay, so he's talking about all these amazing stuff. How does it affect us? So the rabbi there said that it's okay as long as you learn it in a practical way and you always try to connect it to your everyday life. So we're not just floating around with letters and outer worlds. It's very grounding, actually. It's all about who you are, what are you doing here, what are your goals, how does your acts affect the world and yourself and others. If you learn it in that way, that's okay. That's a self-development.
Interesting. So you're saying for you, You were more, coming with your lives and your everyday schedules and just trying to infuse them with a little more spirituality, not trying to like tap out and go sit on a hilltop somewhere.
Exactly, yeah. So those people, they were older, so they knew everything. They were totally floating higher. But the way they taught the shir there, in particular where I went, um, was how to bring down these ideas to your everyday life. So the concern about younger people learning Kabbalah, or people that have not learned enough like Torah or Halacha, is that if you just focus on the theoretics and you don't bring it down to practice, so you're kind of wasting your time and you're wasting the energy, right? So you have to be very you're first coming from a very practical place and knowing what you want to do and knowing your journey, and then you take those ideas and bring them down to your everyday life, and it just gives you meaning and connection, and it's beautiful. It gives you a sense, right? That's what everyone is looking for. We are looking for a sense of understanding what's going on here, right? We want to make sense of what's going on. Our lives are so random. This world is so random. It's just crazy. People have no idea what's going on. Why are things happening to me? Where am I going? And it just gives you, once you learn the theoretics and the rules of the universe, then you get a sense of understanding. You can make sense of yourself and of what's going on here.
Interesting. It reminds me of something I once heard about. Is the point to bring the earth up to like a heavenly level, or is the idea kind of to bring heaven down to earth? So, like, I heard from Rabbi David Aaron once. He said, like, on a certain level, like, you're bringing heaven down to earth. He's like, imagine this idea of, like, love, this, like, concept. And he's like, but it's just, like, a concept. He's like, but now I can go and I can give you a hug, and I can take that love, and I can, like, share it with you.
Right, bring it down
bring
here.
It down
right,
here.
Right. I see it over here in Las Vegas, where obviously we meet a lot of Jewish people that are completely non-observant, and they don't study or practice Judaism in a practical way. But when we talk to them about the ideas that are behind the religion, they tend to take it and adopt it to actual practicing religion. And that's great, because you're going to tell a guy, like, you should keep Shabbat, you should wear your tefillin. But if you don't have a meaning in it, and if you don't know why you're doing it, or you don't understand what's the deal with that, so why would you do it, The only motivation for that could be fear. And once you come, as you said, with the motivation of love, or understanding that it's all about love, and it's all about connection, and all about understanding yourself, and turning yourself into the right person, that is capable of observing that beautiful love. So all the mitzvot you do, all the actual practical religion that you're practicing makes sense, and then you want to start doing it, and you want to get better at it. So this is the main thing we're doing here in Vegas. Some people that grew up in very religious communities sometimes have a lot of things that the protections that they have between themselves and religion, or different assumptions they grew up with, and their relation with Hashem or with God is kind of based on what they were taught at very young ages, and then what they try to make sense throughout their upgrowing, right? Like, why did God do this to me? Okay, maybe he hates me, maybe he's trying to punish me. Why did this happen to me? So we all tend to create this
like storyline
definition of this storyline between us, about this relationship between us and God. And some people prefer to just put God in a box and leave it out of their lives, and get back to him when they need him. A guy told me, people are treating me like God these days. They don't talk to me until they need something from me. So people like to put God in a box and then come over to him when they need something. And that's because they have this assumption that he's like sitting up there and he wants something from us, and we're never going to really live up to those standards. once you learn the meaning of Judaism, once you learn the theoretics and the meaning of these ideas, that creates a real relationship between you and God. It's not just like someone that wants something from you. It's you really creating a real creation here. You're making a connection, and you're creating the world and yourself.
Now,
people relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Spirituality, of course, exists, in certain societies and whatever outside of religion. So I'm wondering, when in your understanding, what's the connection between the spiritual teachings within Judaism and the actual, day-to-day, like halakha, like the religious observance? Where do those two come together? You have a take on that?
Sure. So, obviously, I believe in other religions. Any person, as a person that was created by God, he can connect and find God and connect to spirituality. Our everyday halakha and mitzvot that we do, we use them as tools to create this connection. So we actually got a cool manual book that tells us how to create the connection and how to find spirituality. So spirituality is actually the main reason of doing the mitzvot and the halakha. That's why you're doing it for, right? You're keeping Shabbat, not just someone wants you to keep the Shabbat, you want to turn yourself into a spiritual person, and that's how you do it. Right? When you put on your tefillin, you're making a spiritual connection, and it has meaning. If you learn the meaning, it's going to affect you, and you'll feel it, and that's why we're doing it. So basically, all the mitzvot we have are just tools to help us reach that point.
Well, there are obviously, I've met Jews before who make it sound like they're keeping the halakha and mitzvot just because Hashem said, and like that's the end of their. That's the final reason,
Right, exactly. But why are you doing it? There's something I heard once something that it changed my life when I heard this. Jim Carrey on some high school reunion gave a speech, and he said that basically after everything, there are only two things that motivate people to do something. Anything you do can be motivated from fear or from love. And that's what everything comes out of, right? I can wash the dishes today because I'm scared of what my wife is going to think about me or about the house, or she's going to scream at me if she comes home and sees the dishes dirty. And I could do it out of love because I want this house to be beautiful. And I love her. And so anything you do in life, and this is a very, very fundamental saying, anything you do, you could do out of love or out of fear. So some people are motivated out of fear because maybe they're not used to connecting through love, so they need fear, and that's why. And so they the reason they're keeping mitzvot, just because God told them. You have to ask yourself, why are you still doing it? Right? So are you doing it because you're scared of him, or are you doing it because you love him? And that's where it goes down to, right? And if you're doing it through love, you understand that your actions are connections. You're making a connection with your actions. And you're not just doing it because he said, right? It doesn't mean you shouldn't do things you don't understand, right? Because we rely on our historic books, and we know they're smart enough to tell us what to do and to guide us even in things that we don't really fully understand. But it takes time. So you just go through it and study, and you get meaning.
I definitely hear that. I think on a certain level, because I've had this like debate with a bunch of people. I think even when I agree, let's say that you would do it because God told you to, like, even if that's okay, and like you have historic books and you want to trust them. But at a certain level, I think that the point in doing things is to understand them. I think that the depth of the meaning is there because, like tefillin is a good example. Jews put on, we wrap these little black boxes on our arms with these parshiot inside. Inside this Hebrew text that says all these different ideas and concepts of written in the Bible. And like to me, I think that the whole idea of putting it on daily might just be to think about what's in it.
Exactly.
And if you say, but if you say I'm only putting it on because God told me and like done and no questions asked, then you miss the whole, like, what am I supposed to be thinking about right now? Like, what's the whole idea? And you miss the whole point in it. On a certain level, I was thinking about this today. I was trying to get through Or Nerav. I was having a very hard time. But a sefer from the Ramak. And he brings down, I think he quotes from the Zohar, a certain part, that whoever says about Chachmas Asod, whoever says about like Kabbalah and Chachmas, that it's not part of Jewish learning, he like ruins the worlds, and it's better he hadn't been created, and like he creates destruction and all these, really, really strong language. And but there are two words. He says Kabbalah and like Chachmasa and like wisdom. He makes it sound like part of why we got the Bible and all the commandments was because there's wisdom in all those teachings. And if you just confine it in the actions and you pretend like it's just something I do with my hands and legs, then you lose out on all the wisdom.
Exactly, I totally agree with you. Yeah, that's fascinating, because it's a famous thing that goes down through a lot of Musar books. I think I saw it last in Sifsei Chaim of Rabbi Chaim Friedlander, that he writes that every mitzvah has two parts. When you do the mitzvah, when you do the commandment, there's one part in your action about doing what God told you to do, which is important because we as people that were created, we should have that sense of following the higher powers, right? Because that helps you not to be egoistic. So doing things just because you were told, if you know they're true, that's important. It turns you into a person that knows how to bend yourself to something higher and smarter than you. And the second part of every commandment and every mitzvah that you do is the actual spiritual meaning and light that you're spreading within yourself and within the world. And as you said, if you miss on one of them, you're not reaching the full potential. Right?
So you used a very interesting term there, if you know it's true. And I'd love to pick that apart. Because, like, how do we ever know if anything's true,
Right, that's right. That's a good question. Yeah. So it's a choice. I believe it's a choice. Following the teachings of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, he had one of his fundamental teachings was you have to, right? He says like you have to believe just through, like tmimut, right? How would you say that in English? Like
simplicity,
simple,
kind of.
Simplicity, yeah. So people think that he's saying like just don't think about it and go for it, but it is a choice. I believe that everything is a choice you make, and you make choices through what you think is right, and you know what's right. When you do something, I believe there are the two ways of knowing things, right? There's your brain, which gives you knowledge and just reflects on things that are out, like external things. And then you have your heart that feels things and it has emotions, and that's a real experience. But both can be tricked. I believe there's a higher power than that, which is the power of the soul, that doesn't only know and feel, it just actually, it has a real experience. The neshama is our soul has a very, very high tool of just knowing things. You know what's right? That's why people have their inner voice. You could call it just knowing what's right and wrong. Right? Everyone knows that it's wrong to kill someone. Everyone knows stealing is wrong. You don't need religious for that. Religion for that. Every person has within him a very good, powerful.
Well, I could argue that's just something that society kind of brainwashed us into from little kids, and it's so societal that we've accepted it on a higher level than everything else.
Yeah, but right. I agree with you. But as a person, if you just go through what makes sense and trying to find meaning and what works, so you'll find these truths.
That I agree with.
It's Avraham Avinu didn't have a Torah. He didn't have a Torah book to learn from. He came to everything through his understanding. And if you, right, every person is trying to make sense of their life, but if you, how they say, if your car takes you home, you know it works, right?
Right.
So you don't have to actually believe in your car or like make a scientific study of how your car works, even if you don't know how. If you just know it works, it takes you to the right place. And if you live this way, and you make a choice to live this way, and you see that it just gives you meaning and fulfillment and understanding of what's going on, and it turns you into a good person, and it just answers all the questions you had. So this is the right thing. You don't need scientific evidence for that. It's better. It's a real experience.
Yeah. I think what's above
Well,
knowledge is really, on a certain level, is experience. So
Yeah. Our brain just reflects on external things. That's what it is, right? It just sees and feels, and that's what it has. A real experience, when someone is really happy, you can't argue with that. You can't take it from him. It's very real. It's a real experience. It's not just knowing something. It says in the right about knowing God. It says "V'yadata hayom v'ashavota levavecha ki Hashem hu Elokim en od milvado." Right. So there's a commandment to know, and then v'ashavota levavecha, to like bring it within you and feel it and understand. The word emunah actually means truth, right? Amen means truth. Right? When someone says a blessing, you say amen, which means that's true. And so the word emunah, which some people translate as believing, is really not really believing. It's more making it true. In Hebrew, you say leha amin, to make it true. Right? Because if the word amen means truth, so leha amin means making it true.
I never heard that before.
So it's something that we should do. We should try to make it true and make it like understand it and see how, figure it out, and see how it works in your everyday life. But once you go in that way, you just know it. You know it's real. You can't argue with that.
Yeah. So I recently got into a lot of like psychoanalysis. I started reading Carl Jung after listening a lot to Jordan Peterson. He quotes him. And Carl Jung has this concept that like your God, like the individual understanding of God, is just the thing that you put at the pinnacle of your hierarchy of importance, and that everyone has a God. It's just a question of like what's the most important thing to you. So if money is the most important thing to you, then money is your God,
Beautiful.
But by
that's
definition, it's a funny way of looking at it, because if you look at it like that, then everyone believes in God. We like it or not.
Exactly.
You all believe in God.
Exactly. You can't say you don't believe, but it
Can't say you don't
the
believe.
power. Then you.
The question is, what do you believe in?
Who's your God?
That's the real question.
Who's your God? Is your job the God? Is what other people think about you your God? I just watched a video of Manis Friedman. He's pretty cool.
I like him. Yeah.
Check him up on
I like
YouTube.
watching him.
He's very clear. He has a lot of logical explanations for religion and for spirituality. And he puts it that way. He says everyone has a God. There's no such a thing as an atheist. But, some people think the Big Bang was their God. And that's how everything started. So, okay, that's your God. Or an explosion. A random explosion. That could be your God. We believe our God is a little bit more powerful and has rules.
There's like the creator God. There's like the HaKadosh Baruch Hu mibachutz, and then there's like mibifnim. There's two different aspects. There's God as the creator of everything, and God as the like personal experience.
Yeah, I believe it's all one, because we all part of God.
Right, but I'm saying that the God as a
God.
creator, if you want to understand God, then I can, in other words, you have to define your terms before I can say whether or not I believe or agree or disagree. If you define God as like the external creator, that I feel like people can debate, right? But this internal aspect of God, where Carl Jung is saying God is just your pinnacle of your hierarchy of beliefs, then by definition, everyone kind of, That God, I don't think you can get away from.
Right, in Hebrew, the way we write God's name is called Havaya, which means existence. Which means basically, and in Chabad teachings they talk about this a lot. That God is just the whole existence. So whatever is there, that's God, right? He's the core of everything. So you can't not believe in God, because if you believe in existence, you believe in God. Now, how much of this existence you can experience and observe, that's up to you, and how spiritual you can develop yourself.
And then the next question would be also if this existence, what existence wants from you, I guess.
Sure, that's why we live here. That's what we're here for. This whole life is answers for what existence wants from you, right? That's what we're here for, to answer that question.
Well, some people, I think, believe that existence just, wants us to exist.
Well, there's different ways of existing. Yeah, I mean, it's about your experience. Yeah, you can exist, and we all exist, but what are you experiencing during that existence, right? You could be miserable, you could be confused, or you could be connected and enlightened. I think everything comes down to love, because God is called love, right? In the Zohar, they call the Torah Rahmana, which means love in Aramaic, and they also call God Rahmana sometimes, and it's also called God love. So basically, everything is love, right? If you go with that, you're gonna feel it everywhere, and you'll know it, and that's gonna guide you, right? If you know you're here for love, so and everything that happens to you is just a practice for you to be that type of person that can observe that love. That's going to answer all your questions, in my opinion. And you can check it out.
That's interesting. So it's actually, when you were talking about before why you do things, for love or for fear, so I was thinking about it. And I've had this discussion, I did Yam Liyam last year. And one of the big Yam Liyam questions, I did it with my friend, is like, what are your 3 most important things? Like, what's the pinnacle of your hierarchy of importance, right? And, after 3 or 4 days struggling through the mountains in North Israel, I reached the conclusion that for me, I think it's truth.
Right.
I'm not even sure what that means exactly, but I think for me it's truth. A lot of things I do, I'm like, it's a lot about fairness and how would you want to, even that very, the Talmudic dictum of what you don't want your friend to do to you, don't do to him, right? Where was it Hillel or Rabbi Akiva? When they came, I think that was the Hillel one, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of think of it as v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, right? Like Rabbi Akiva's kind of thing. But we think of v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha generally as love, and I don't see it that way. I see it as fairness.
Yeah, why do you see it as fairness? I mean, v'ahavta means love, no?
Yeah, but love him like you would want to be loved. If this is what you want from others, then you got to do it to them. It's a fair thing.
Right.
If you're not behaving that way, then why should I behave that way to you?
Right. Maybe the meaning is v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love him like you love yourself. Like you do love yourself. Right?
Well, that's what you're gonna do on a certain level. that's right. If you don't have any love for yourself, you have nothing to give. But it might mean
exactly.
kamocha, like as if he is yourself. Can you translate
like you love yourself? Kamocha, like he loves you, like you love yourself.
Can you translate it like he is like he is yourself?
Right.
Love him like he is yourself.
You could translate it that way, yeah. Like he is yourself.
Like he's part of you. I don't know.
Yeah, my simple understanding is love him like you love yourself.
Okay.
That's what I think is the meaning. And we all love ourselves, but sometimes we forget about it. Right? But whatever if you love someone else like you love yourself, that's gonna be a very good level. That's a good place to start.
I mean, you got to start with loving yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Loving yourself is important. Yeah, you can't give others if you don't have if you're not filled with love. And you can't observe love if you don't allow yourself to feel it, right? And it does all come down to love. As you said, when the reason for someone to, so basically the reason for you to believe in something is because you know it's true. And the way of knowing something is true is by experiencing it. And when it makes sense, when that experience makes sense, you know it's true, right?
Right. I think we also have to to a certain level, like redefine what it is, because when we think it means something specific, and then what we think it means isn't there, you know, like if you think God is, you know, this like big rabbi in the sky with a long white beard who's like gonna throw down a lightning bolt, you know, the second you do something wrong, and that never happens, then eventually you're just like, okay, God doesn't exist. You know, whereas if you had like a deeper version of like what God means and reality and existence, like what you were saying before, then you can't, no one could possibly say that reality and existence like don't somehow exist, whatever that even means.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And even if you would say so, it doesn't matter. It's not going to matter anymore. Like it's just going to be words without matter. Right?
I think it's important to separate the idea of God from the teachings of the Torah. And I know that might sound like super heretical, but but I think it's easier to have the experience without the baggage.
Right. That's when you have the wrong baggage. If the Torah for someone gives him a wrong impression, or maybe like makes you get used to fear, or right. So that's a big baggage. Yeah. Once you really learn correctly, you're starting to understand that the Torah is actually the same thing. It's just a tool for you to feel God's love, and to and that's how you connect to Him. And that's easy. I don't see why anyone won't want to do that. Right? We're all looking for love and connection. That's what we're here for. You know, ask everyone. What are you looking for? What do you really, really want? And the reason they want money or success or recognition or value, like being valued by other people, that's just because they want love. They want to have the peace of feeling love. And that's what the Torah is for. Torah is just a practice. It's a toolbox for us to experience that love. Right? It makes a lot of sense. You know, this whole idea of the next world, when people, this is a good example of how some people have the wrong baggage of teachings of Torah, right? When we talk about the next world, ask people. So they have this Christian idea of hell and heaven, right? And there's a punishment for the people that didn't do right. And then it's like, it could be scary, right? People are scared of death because they don't know what's going to be after that. And the Christian idea of the next world, or what's happening after this life, is based on fear, right? They tell you, like, you're going to reach hell and there are these scary, demons with burning eyes and horns. And once you start learning Kabbalah, or once you start learning the Torah in a loving way, you understand that doesn't exist. And whatever they call hell is just a lack of someone from reaching God's love. And what they call heaven is the ability to feel God's love. So if you're based out of fear, you have these scary pictures in your mind, that's going to be a problem. You're going to, every teaching, every mitzvah, everything you're going to do is going to come out of fear. And it's not going to work. You won't like it. You won't understand it. You won't want to do it. If you know it's just a tool to create you and to make you a person that can observe love, so you'll be fine. You're going to like it. It's going to make sense.
So on a certain level, that's like an experience, a difference in experience, obviously. Like two people could be doing the same thing, and because doing it for two different reasons, one's not enjoying it and one is.
Exactly. You're having a different experience. Yeah, it affects you differently. Yeah.
But I also think that obviously there's this messianic prophecy that Bayamim Tikuli Ishi V'Leikuli Od Ba'ali. You know that one?
Okay.
That in the days of the Mashiach, we're going to refer to God as our beloved instead of as our husband, which in Hebrew has like Ba'ali, denotes like a certain aspect of like master.
Right.
Of like he's in charge of you, and in the times of Mashiach, it's going to be this like purely love relationship and less of a fear relationship.
Yeah.
On a certain level, like that obviously helps with being able to do something. Like if you love the person, you'll do it because you want to, and you'll be much happier. You know, if a wife loves her husband, then she'll make dinner, let's say, and she'll be happy. She's like, I'm gonna get to serve dinner. You're excited. Like if cooking for someone who you like is like, it could be very thrilling. It's fun.
Right.
Whereas if you don't, then it's just a job and you hate it. Most things, like everything in life, is like that. But at the same time, also, I think there's another aspect, which is that when it's fear based, it's hard to get to the truth. I feel like because
you're blocked. Yeah.
You're listening because you're afraid, and you don't even stop to question, like, is this what they really want?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Whereas I think with love, you have more of an open mind.
Yeah. You're open. Yeah. The meaning of fear is protecting yourself from something, right? So you're closed. You're in a shell. You can't observe anything. We can't even teach you anything because you're closed. You're hiding, right? That's what fear means. Fear means disconnection, and love means connection. So how can someone learn anything or practice something when they're hiding in their shell? They're doing it from they can maybe observe little bits of what did reach them, but that's.
I think with the fear also, with the fear aspect, it generally comes hand in hand with like not being allowed to question. Do this because I say so, because you have to. Otherwise, if you don't, right? So then I'm not really able to ask questions.
It's not you,
We can't get to the depth of the subject. And I mean, you want to get to the depth of the subject, we have to have an open, honest conversation. And we can only have an open, honest conversation if I can risk crossing the line without getting hit by a lightning bolt.
Right. And you have to be there. Your real self has to be there. And people have to let their real self come out. And fear makes us protect ourselves, right? We grow up and put walls around us and barriers to protect ourselves. And then anything we engage with is very particle because we're not really there. We don't allow ourselves to really, truly be there. What love is trying to teach you is like, just get all those walls down and truly be there. Truly experience it. You're okay. If you adopt a child that went through came from an abused family, you're going to want to give him a hug. He's going to run away, right? He's not going to want your hug because he's afraid. He's scared. And his fear is not allowing him to feel it. It's not allowing him to accept your love. And the only way of helping him is to just offer him more and more and more love. And someday he'll open up to you and start telling you what he really thinks. And that's when you're connected. And he's there. He's there with you. He doesn't have his own world. Right? So if people are scared of God in some way, it's really bad because it makes a big separation between you and him because you're not there. You are creating yourself a place that God is not there for you. Right? Because he's external to you. You have your own little shell you're hiding in. God is not there. You're very lonely. You're on your own. Once you're willing to break out that shell and come out and reveal yourself the way you are. The reason people don't do it is because they believe God judges them. Right? So if you feel judged, you're not going to come out and reveal yourself because you're hiding. You feel like you're not good enough and you have to live up to some kind of expectation and you're not there. So you're going to be scared. Once you understand that God just accepts you the way you are and you can allow yourself to break down through those barriers you built in order to separate yourself from him. So that's when you start experiencing love, and that's how your relationship will be real, and the things you do will come through real motivation and understanding.
Right, and on a certain level, it's really, yeah, that's probably also why, to certain people, God's not there. It's because also you have that feeling of being judged, so it's easier to just say, I don't believe in God, right? Right. David Aaron, again, going back, he has this cute little, like YouTube series where he like goes into the concept of like God, what this concept is.
Like animated,
yeah. Thanks. It's a little animated like series. It's very, very, very deep stuff. It's really crazy. And he has this one of like a girl who like her mother was yelling at her or something. She ran into like the bathroom, and they yelled like, "God's gonna get you!" And she's like, "I'm in the bathroom." And they're like, "God's in the bathroom too," And like right, Aaron is like, yeah, I don't believe in that God. My God is not trying to get little girls in the bathroom.
Exactly. Right.
He actually likes to say Kabbalah doesn't believe in God. That's what he likes to say, just as a little,
I mean, again, it goes
we
back
believe
to
in like this concept, right?
What God don't you believe in?
Yeah, but the people that call God of like this entity that's gonna like catch you and judge you and like
that doesn't exist, right?
It's not a Kabbalistic concept at all. In Kabbalah, you can't even try to say that.
Yeah, in Kabbalah, there's no such a thing as pain or punishment or anything bad at all, because the way everything works is through the shefa and love and light coming down, and the only thing that could exist is disturbances from that light coming down. And this is Reb Chaim Vital. He wrote this in the book Shari Kedusha. He was a big Talmid of the Arizal. So Shari Kedusha is an amazing book for beginners that want to start looking into Kabbalah. And he writes there that God's love is always pouring down. There is no such a thing as punishment. In spiritual world, there's no bad at all. There's no pain at all. The only thing there is us sometimes putting a protection or a shield between us and experiencing that love. And that's what all suffering of this world comes from, by us hiding or putting that shield between us and that eternal love that God pours on us always. So it's not like if you do wrong, there's a punishment. If you do wrong, you're blocking the shefa, you're blocking the light to come down and shine at you by choice. And you could do that anytime, whenever you choose. You could just unplug that by returning and connecting back again.
Right.
So that's what we do here, right? That's what we're here for. This whole world is just a map of teachings, things that happen to us there just to teach us where we're going, what's the right way, right? It's just a maze. I like to say this whole world is a maze. So you work straight, you bump into the wall, you have to make a left turn, right? You take the left, you bump in again, take the right turn. You just have to figure out your way. That's what we're here for. And eventually you'll come out from the other side a better person.
I was in Yerushalayim last Shabbat, the week before, and we were talking about this concept. So I said, the whole Torah is like a map for the world, for like reality, right? But I said there's one thing that map is missing, and that's the little X that says you are here.
Wow, yeah, that's our job. Yeah,
that's your job to figure out.
Exactly.
And that's where spirituality comes in. I think spirituality, getting in touch with like your deeper self, to try to understand who you are and where you are, and
exactly. When you could use a road map, a paper map, but if you have real connection, so you get the signal, and then you see yourself on the GPS, it's easier to navigate that way.
So it's a good addition to the mashal.
Right. You just have you have the arrow, and you know where you are and where you want to go, and instead of just like living your life randomly and trying to figure it out. It's hard. It's easier when you have a guard. Yeah. And that's what we're here for. And the concept that you spoke before about the Geulah, and the ultimate peace of mind, where people would be where they know they found their place. It reminded me, Rav Kook talks a lot about that the Geulah and all these prophecies that are going to happen at someday, they start within you. So there's the Geulah Pratit and Geulah Klalit, right? So one Geulah, one redemption is the nation being in Israel and having Bet HaMikdash and living the right way and finding their way. But the way that's going to happen is through every person finding their own self and finding their map. And then at the end, everyone will come together and be there together. We can save ourselves right now. We can give that redemption by practicing and finding our truth. And then you're already there in a sense.
On a certain level, I was thinking about it recently. The prophecy with Eliyahu and Avi, Elijah the prophet. V'heshiv levavot al banim v'lebanim al avotam. He's going to, return the hearts of the fathers to the children and the children to the fathers. So on a certain level, I always thought it was just bridging like the generational gap, because I think in every generation we lose a lot just because the teachers don't really understand the students, and there's just a big misunderstanding. Because students are trying to be the teacher instead of trying to, teachers are trying to get down to the level of the students, and I think you just lose a lot on it. But recently I was joking with a friend, and I was like, maybe it just means like your inner child,
Right. Beautiful. Right. You find the inner child. We all have that inner child and that real genuine self. That we know that. We all, like, if you search yourself, your soul has a beautiful part of giving and love and just doing the right thing. You know that you have that enlightened part within you. The problem is we're shy living it and showing it outside. We're used to building these barriers to protect ourselves, like we said before. And that's why each one of us lives their own beautiful soul separated. And that's a shame, because we should practice how to bring that part of our soul into our everyday lives and show it out and smile it out and shine it at each other. And if we will live that way, everything will be beautiful. There would be no wars. There would be no competition, right? We're just in the same place. So I wish we all managed to live our real, genuine, beautiful part of our soul, which is just love and light and bringing good everywhere. And if I can practice and dare to bring it out, and if you do that too, and if everyone does that too, that's going to be the real Geulah. That's how we're going to live in a real reality of connection.
Yeah, I definitely believe in that like personal redemption first. Like there's this concept in the Zohar, I think, that like before the final redemption, Kabbalah becomes like much more known in the world. It gets learned and taught and preached, and that's a lot of these big Kabbalists. One of the reasons why they wrote their books and one of the reasons why they disseminated certain teachings was for this concept of redemption, this like as part of their redemptive process. Recently though, like when I was learning some of these Kabbalistic books, I realized how much of Kabbalah is really like psychoanalysis, like trying to understand the human psyche. And that's when I realized like the only way to fix ourselves is to understand ourselves, and the only way to fix the world is to really fix ourselves.
Right.
Because we are the problem. We create all the we're really like greed and all the
problems are just happening within us. Yeah, the world is perfect. The problems are within us.
So the only way to fix the world is to fix ourselves. The only way to fix ourselves is to first understand ourselves.
Right,
and like
right.
I think that's like the idea of Kabbalah, that it's like trying to explain the human psyche and like how our decisions
help you let go and live your real self. Rabbi Nachman from Breslov said that at the end of the redemption, everyone will be Breslov, right? And more and more people are coming to Uman every year, and then people that come one year are going to come again next year. And I think there's truth in what he says, not specifically about the Hasidic group in particular, but just as if you learn his books.
I don't know what he had in mind when he
teachings.
said Breslev, you know?
Yeah, I think he meant I heard from a big rabbi of Breslov that said that Breslov means lev, right? And like opening your heart, basically. Lev basar, that's what he said. Lev basar. There's a prophecy in Yeshaya that says you have to turn your heart from a stone heart into a real heart, right? So Breslov means lev basar, like that's the teachings are how to turn your heart into like going back to its true self and the real way it's supposed to be.
Right.
And we all have that. It's not hard. It's really not hard. Everybody knows. We all know these parts within us.
It's not hard.
Yeah,
different people built up different amounts of barriers, you know.
Exactly. So that's what he says. "Va'ikar lo lefached klal," right? Like, don't base yourself on fear. Just allow yourself. Explore yourself. Explore the beautiful parts of yourself. Explore the nice, calm, happy, fulfilled, giving parts of yourself. And allow them to take over. Allow them...
Was it about exploring them or about seeing through the sheker? You know what I mean?
Just understanding that the sheker doesn't really exist. So you don't have to fight
like
it.
you were saying before, on a certain level, obviously everyone's, you know, this pure light, but we build up all these barriers. Right. So on a certain level, maybe it's just seeing through the barriers.
Right. Well, even more than that, understanding that the barriers don't really exist. They don't exist in our imagination.
Right.
And they're there out of fear. Right. We're scared of what is he going to think about me? What's going to happen to me tomorrow? And that's why we don't allow ourselves to live in full present and bring our genuine self out there. Once you know that everything is just love, and the only bad things that you can call bad is us imagining that we're a shield from that love. So hopefully we'll just manage to let it go.
I think to a certain level there also might be people out there who are searching for, you know, meaning, purpose, fulfillment, whatever it is. And to a certain level they didn't find it within, you know, their religious experience. And they're looking for it elsewhere. Or they didn't have a religious experience, they're searching for it. And
because sorry for stopping you. I think they saw religious experiences as just like manifesting or practicing that are external. And
to a lot of people they are, and that's how they're taught to a lot of people.
That's why you don't connect to it, because it's just, right, if I'll pay you $1,000 a day just to bang on the wall, you won't want to do that, because there's no meaning to it.
For sure, but can I, just to give you an example, I think it's, to say everything is fear sometimes, for me, is scary, because the reality is, I think there are, first of all, then everyone you see who left Judaism, like, oh, you're just afraid of something, you know? For me, I don't like having that outlook. And I think also it's just not true. You're going to get some people who are just like, I didn't have, like, I don't see any purpose or meaning there. You know what I mean? So I left. Right. And I do think that people have that experience, and that experience is real for them. Like, their version of Judaism wasn't real, and I agree with them. Right. I would go the other route. You know what I mean? Exactly.
So it's not that they don't believe in Judaism, it's that they don't believe in the way they view Judaism.
Right, but if you don't, until you separate the two, that's why I would like to separate God from Judaism to a certain extent. Because I think people are throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Because the Judaism you're handed is garbage, so you throw it out together with God. You know what I mean?
Right. So you believe there's a way of finding God without, like, just within you, even without the practices of the practical practices of Judaism, and then after that you can come back and see how these practices actually make sense with what you believe in and what you're experiencing.
I definitely think so, yeah. And even if not, at least you'll have God.
Yeah, even if it does prove itself. Yeah,
even if
I hear what you're saying. It does work. It does work. I'm telling you here from experience in Las Vegas for the past 2 years. Probably 85% of the people I studied with that declared completely they don't believe in like practical Judaism. But then, so we started, as you said, just from learning about God and understanding yourself. And the next step was always, okay, how can I take this into my everyday life? and then they start keeping the actual mitzvot. So it does work that way, and it's proven.
I think it could, and you're talking about now people who are, to some extent, I guess, interested or searching, right? I'm talking about more on a certain level, people who are leaving, because I've worked in Kiev for a while, for several years. I also worked in yeshivot in Israel, with people who they would probably call like troubled teenagers and stuff like that.
Right.
And there was this joke in one of the yeshivot I worked in that they said, over 80%, whatever it was, of the students they had that came back that they were trying to teach about Judaism, their parents, there's a joke like their parents are Baalei Tshuva, and then the kids go off the derech. That's the joke that they say. Just to put it into words, I don't believe in any of those terms, right? Put it out there. But I'm not so sure that I'm on a broad scale. I'm not so sure that I believe in bringing people into a system where we keep losing people.
Yeah.
There's something wrong there for me philosophically. You know what I mean? If you have such a great system, why do you keep losing people? And why are you more worried about getting other people from other places than chesed begins at home? You know what I mean?
So there is a beautiful movement of Kira these days that is people just staying in their communities. If in Israel, it used to be they would come into from religious, Orthodox communities. Today, a lot of people just start practicing Judaism, and they stay where they are. They stay within their jobs and with their families, and they just start practicing it, and it's becoming in Israel more and more acceptable. A guy just shows up with a kippah, with tzitzit one day, and in Ramat HaSharon, there's this whole community of celebrities, ex-celebrities, or some of them are still celebrities, or TV stars. They just started practicing Judaism, and they're still there. And they're not going anywhere. They're not going to go move to Jerusalem or to Bnei Brak, and that's okay. They have their own places. They don't feel like they need to apologize or try to be part of something better because they found their truth, and that's great. And we have that in Vegas a lot. People stay here, and they just want to live closer to a synagogue, but they don't feel like they have to become from. Or they just start keeping and start practicing, and then their family follows them. And that's how you bring light everywhere. We don't believe there is one spot where the truth is there and everyone has to come and find it there. We believe you could spread out the light around wherever people are. And if you grew up in a frum community, and there's a lot to unlearn because a lot of things there are based on misconcept, misunderstanding things, or whatever it was you were taught. It's never too late to start learning from zero. It's never too late to start relearning everything you know, and searching, and you should go and search, and you'll find it at the end if you try. Yeah,
I think on a certain level, once someone is already an independent thinker, I guess for lack of a better term, then you got to start the other way around. You got to start like Avram Avinu did,
Right. Exactly.
You really just gotta bring them in and start this whole idea of what is God.
Sure.
That's really what Avram Avinu was doing. He didn't have, and between me and you, I'm not so sure that I don't want to start who's holier, but I was speaking to a friend of mine, Bernie, last week, and he spoke about this concept of holy robots. These people who have no idea what they believe in and what they're doing, and they're just doing it. Right? So, imagine someone who, really believes in God, Basof Kulamiyu Breslev. Imagine this, guy who, talks to God all day, every day. He's in bed at night, he goes under his covers, and he's just schmoozing, right? And he doesn't keep any of the Torah. So, obviously, this is going to be super controversial for me to say, right? But, I personally don't know who's holier. A Jew who keeps all the mitzvot, but doesn't really have any concept of what God is or isn't, or this guy who's talking to God every day, and he's God, I don't know what you want from me. I don't get it. I don't know if I buy into this. I don't know if I buy into this Torah thing. I just don't know if I believe in it. What do you want from me? I don't know if I believe.
Between those two, it could be a good question: who is holier? But for everyone, even if you could find God through spirituality or through meditation, if you actually use the mitzvot as tools, you're going to find it very, very, very helpful. And you're going to see that your connection to God will be much, much stronger, much more real in your everyday life. So I heard this on a video of Rabbi Benzi Klatzko. He said it once. He said, "Why would people start keeping mitzvot if they can connect to God through meditation or spirituality, right?" So he said this is exactly like if someone wants to buy his wife a gesture of love and give her something, and she says, "I want you to go to the store and buy me flowers," and then he goes to the store and buys her a new iron. And he comes back and he says, "Look, I got you an iron. It's beautiful. It can iron our clothing." But she says, "No, that's not what I wanted. I wanted flowers. This is not my right." There's something that's called love language, and even if it's a really good iron, she wanted flowers. That's her love language. So he said, even if you feel very close to God, but God gave you a list of things that He considers the love gestures and the connection between you. So why don't you go ahead and do them as well? I mean, He will accept us anyway, but at least for us, you see that if you do practice and use the mitzvot as tools for the and love gestures, that it works. It really proves itself. You'll be much more connected and much more grounded. It's bringing life to every day.
I'm not so sure I buy into that. That you will be. I think you can use them as a means to be more grounded and connected, but I think just from keeping them, I'm not so sure that you.
Right, keeping them without the kavanah. That's what it says, right? That tefillah without kavanah is like a body without a soul.
That's what I think.
Yeah. So doing just mitzvot without the meaning of it is lacking a lot of the connection.
I remember once when I first got to Israel. I went to like this Hanukkah party of like, distant relatives and stuff like that. And obviously, one of the religious and non-religious got into this conversation, right? And everyone was like very respectful. The whole family is very respectful. Happens to be also your family, incidentally, distant cousins. Right. But somebody asked this idea of like tefillin, like you're taking a piece of hide, you're painting it a color, and you're strapping it to your arm. Like, okay. Big whoop, right? And at the time, honestly, like I didn't have anything to say. I was just like, that's what Hashem wants. I didn't even answer. I think he was asking one of my other cousins. But now I would say you're right. It's a big whoop. It's all about the message in there.
Right.
And the way to preserve the message is to say you should take it daily and put it on. But yeah, what I would say now as someone who's like studied a certain level of Kabbalah and meditation and this and that. I would say the person who puts on tefillin and doesn't know what's written in them hasn't really done anything as a person, to advance his own spirituality. Now, as a society, we need those people to still be around because we need the tradition to keep going. That way, eventually, someday, somebody can wake up and say, "Hey, what's in this box?"
Right. So I do think there is a concept of physical acts that have some kind of spiritual meaning without you knowing the meaning. Like when you do a mitzvah, there's some kind.
So it has a meaning, like in the world.
Spiritual, like there is a spiritual effect to that, but obviously it's lacking. Like the real meaning comes from the kavanah and what you feel in your heart, because that's what it's for. The whole meaning of the act is in order to turn you into the right spiritual person. So, and if you're not doing it with the right intention, so you're lacking a lot. Yeah, I mean, you could try to manifest it in order to not completely get lost, right? Like you said before, right? It keeps our identity.
There's multiple reasons you can give that are like that don't say, "Oh, I'm a better person." Like if you do it and you don't think through any of it, I don't think you're better necessarily. You haven't walked away better from it. Second, you take them off, you gain nothing. What did you gain? So if you imagine Judaism as like reward and punishment, and you have like a box that you're walking around with, all the good deeds and all the bad deeds, then okay, you've put another good deed into the little box. But like, if it's like this perfection of like the human psyche and like soul and like you're trying to become a better person, and then when you put it on and you think about like what does this mean? There's a God and like same God for all of us and only one, and we're all the singularity and we're all united as humanity, and like try to be nice to everyone and love him because he's part of you, right? What's the next thing we say right after God, right? Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, ve'ahavta.
Right. Yeah. On the other hand, if you don't practice the actual mitzvot and you just base your connection to God within your spiritual experience, it could be very flexible. Like it's not grounded in acts. We do need to ground it in acts in order to make it very real for us, and in order to make it to have the right effect on our body and our soul. The only way of having this effect on our soul is through physical acts, and that's why we're in a physical world. If someone just bases their connection with God on meditating or just having a spiritual connection without the physical acts, that I believe that could be very shaky. I mean, he could wake up tomorrow and feel something else, or he can, like, it's dependent on your mood, or what you believe in, or what you think. And acts are grounding. Acts is the mitzvah to actually taking those ideas and grounding them down. And that's how it really affects you, right?
Well, to me, simply it won't last. To me, that's the way I look at it.
You need both.
It just won't last.
You need both, right?
Because you're not always thinking about it every day. But if every day you need to put it in the box, then every day you have something to trigger your memory.
Exactly.
That's
beautiful. Yeah, that's the right word.
But if you never know what's in it, it's like
so
kind of like reading
without
something.
The soul is not there.
It's like reading Shema, like reading whatever it is. Like, how much do you gain from reading something you don't understand?
Exactly.
I don't think you gain so much. But the second you understand it, though, if you don't constantly read it,
Right, you just get an idea. You don't get the full picture. So there's a world of souls without bodies, but we know that the real way, the reality and the existence should be is souls within bodies, and the feelings and the connection to God is represented by the soul, and the mitzvot and the acts and the physical acts are represented with our body. So this world is a connection of soul and body. That's why we should practice both, because we're not there, right? In the spiritual worlds, there's no physical acts because they don't need it. They're so close. The reason why we are souls within bodies, and it's in order to serve God with both of them.
So, just bringing it back to the example, like, what would you say to such a person if they would ask you, like, what do I need to take this black box and strap it to my arm for? Like, what?
I'll say go ahead and study the meaning of it if you want.
But do you need the meaning? In other words, is there a point in doing it without any meaning? And how much of a point?
I mean, there's a big chance if you won't do it without the meaning, if you won't do it at all, so you'll just forget about it and you won't find the act or neither the meaning. You'll just go ahead and go have a steak in a restaurant. So I think there is, you should, like, if you do an act, even if you don't understand the meaning, at least you're connecting in some level, and it's going to remind you, hopefully, someday to also understand the meaning behind it. Right? You're practicing. You have some kind of connection. It's easier to do physical connections. It's easier than fully understanding something.
Here's the Torah on a certain level says, right? Shaitem la'os al yodecha. You should make them for a sign.
It's a reminder. Exactly.
God didn't say put it on because I want you to put it on. He said put it on. Right. It should be a reminder. Okay, what's it supposed to remind me of? So obviously you got to put it on, because if you don't put it on, you won't have reminders, and then you'll never do it, right? So obviously I'm telling you, you have to set an alarm. But obviously the point of the alarm is nothing. The alarm's there for you to do something.
Right, the alarm is there for the meaning of it.
So I would agree, anyone who just sets the alarm, I would agree they're not really doing very much. I don't know. I don't see the necessity. I think there's this necessity in Judaism that I've seen to give a lot of meaning to the base act, just the act. As if we're just trying to preserve this act in it for itself, for the sake of the act, and to almost cut off that deeper wisdom and insight and Kabbalah, like I was talking about before. Right. I think Judaism on a certain level is, a lot of people are kind of steering away from that. Like, I'm doing this just because Hashem said. And it's like, if you say it like that, then you miss the whole zikaron, you miss the whole os. Then there's no...
Yeah. I agree. I mean, probably a lot of things that are taught as a communities or society, they're there to keep the society going, like you said before. But for every person, you definitely need to learn the meaning of it, and then you will want to do it.
Rabbi Aya Kaplan actually has this mini almost conspiracy theory that the tefillah, like the davening, like tefillah and like the siddur and Beit Knesset and like all these things we're kind of made to connect Jews as a community throughout Galut.
Right.
A very interesting concept, because I mean now I guess we have like the yeshivas that often learn the same things, and we have like Daf Yomi and like stuff like that. But back in the day, a couple thousand years ago, when the rabbis realized we're all going into exile, they're like, how do we make something that no matter where you go, you'll be connected to the community?
Right.
And they're like, we create this whole davening, and everywhere you go, you got to daven with a minyan, you got to go to shul, you bit knesset.
So it's always going to ground you back. It's good because it grounds you. You're not going to get lost. You're not going to just get lost. It grounds you. That's important.